Why do you want to be executed?
I have to be. Because I will kill again. No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old, over half my life. Anything happened, I can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child. I've done it before, and at the time I liked it.
In 1989, Wesley Allen Dodd confessed to killing 3 children. He murdered brothers William Neer, 10, and Cole Neer, 11, in a Vancouver park before strangling 4-year-old Leah Seeley a month later. In 1990, he was sentenced to death and given the choice between lethal injection or hanging. He chose hanging and dropped all appeals, convinced that he deserved to die. He stated multiple times that he would kill again and enjoyed every moment of committing these heinous crimes. He was hanged on January 5th, 1993. His last words were, "Someone once asked me, I don't remember who, but they asked me, is there any way to stop sex offenders? I said no, but I was wrong. There is hope and there is peace. I found both in the Lord. Look to him and you will find peace." Those were indeed powerful words.
You know, am I pure evil? Am I the face of terror sitting here in front of you? Or am I able to talk to you man to man?
Most people in this country think you are the face of evil, don't they?
They do. But sitting down here now, and let me make clear, I'm not sitting here trying to influence you. And I'm not putting on a game face. I'm not conning anybody.
Timothy McVeigh was dubbed the Oklahoma City Bomber in 1995, after his homemade bomb killed 149 people and 19 children in front of a federal government building in Oklahoma. He was sentenced to death, and when the time came for his execution in 2001, he chose to remain silent throughout the lethal injection process. However, he left a message with his final words, quoting the last lines of a poem by William Ernest Henley. McVeigh was executed by lethal injection on June 11, 2001. His final written words were, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." If you asked any of the families of the Oklahoma City bombing victims, they would say he got off easy. And looking at others on this list, that seems true.
For those people who have been given the death penalty, who have been convicted of taking another's life, what should society do?
Okay, well, one of the main arguments of the death penalty is that it will potentially deter other people from committing crimes.
Do you think it will?
Definitely not.
The case of Robert Sullivan is an interesting one. He was convicted of killing Donald Schmidt, an employee at the Howard Johnson restaurant where Sullivan worked. Schmidt was shot twice in the head with a rifle in 1972. Sullivan was on death row for over 10 years and fought the death penalty with support from figures like Pope John Paul II. Unfortunately for Sullivan, he failed to convince the Supreme Court that the death penalty was a cruel and ineffective punishment. He was executed by electric chair on December 1st, 1983. Sullivan's last words, after fighting against the cause of his death, were, "Despite what is about to happen to me, do not give up. I bear no grudges. May God bless us all." Sullivan spent most of his incarceration not fighting the charges against him, but the punishment itself, and his last words expressed his defeat and lack of victory.
Are you frightened about next week?
Well, death is death. A person said one time, he said, "That's a horrible way of dying." I said, "What is a good way? Could you tell me what a good way is to die?"
Billy Wayne Cobble was arrested for killing Robert and Zelda Visha and their son Bobby Visha in 1989. They were the parents and brother of his estranged wife. Before killing the Visha family, he went to their home and tied up his wife and daughters. Cobble is the oldest man to be executed in Texas in the last 100 years. The death penalty was reinstated in Texas in 1982, a decade before Cobble's crimes led to his imprisonment and eventual execution. Cobble was executed by lethal injection on February 28, 2019. His last words were, "Yes, sir, that will be $5. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you, Mike. I love you. Where's Nellie? I love you. That will be $5. Goodbye." I don't know what he meant by the $5, but when he said it, He was addressing his family of 5, from Texas to Florida, from a lesser-known killer to a notorious one. Let's continue.
My experience with, I say pornography generally, but with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality, is that once you become addicted to it, and I look at this as a kind of addiction, like other kinds of addiction, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement.
Ted Bundy is one of the world's most infamous serial killers. His life has been the subject of many documentaries due to his violent and abusive acts throughout the 1970s. Bundy killed over 30 women, and his last words, according to many, were merely a social plea from a deranged person seeking sympathy from those he harmed. However, this does not necessarily mean they meant what they said, and the matter remains a secret buried with Bundy. His last words were chilling to many, given the nature of his heinous crimes. Bundy was executed in the electric chair on January 24, 1989. His last words were, "Tell my family and friends I love them. Ted, you truly were a strange and deranged individual." The word deranged is fitting. Deranged people hide their true thoughts in their heads, and it's impossible to know what goes on in their minds. We are not sure if the true nature of Ted Bundy's thoughts will ever be known or understood. Here is an example that shows we may never know what goes on in the mind of a deranged person.
How have you prepared yourself for tomorrow morning?
I'm all right with it. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Hey, I was tortured at BCI.
Aileen Wuornos was a deadly serial killer. In 1989 and 1990, more than 7 bodies of middle-aged white men were discovered in various locations in Central Florida. They had been robbed and shot before Wuornos stole their cars. Wuornos never regretted her actions and lost her chance to avoid execution when she declared she would kill again if released. Throughout her imprisonment, she accused guards and inmates of tampering with her food and torturing her. Wuornos was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002. Describing her last words as strange might be an understatement. Before her execution, Wuornos looked at the executioner and the audience and said her haunting words, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, Big Mothership and all. I'll be back." What are you saying? We haven't finished with them and their madness. Let's continue. The next serial killer on death row was a religious man.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe, poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Richard Ramirez spread terror and fear in California in 1984 and 1985 and was dubbed the Night Stalker. He broke into homes across Los Angeles using various weapons like guns, knives, and hammers to kill his victims. Ramirez did not discriminate among his victims. The youngest was 6 years old, and the oldest was 83. Before killing his victims, he raped them. In 1989, this serial killer and Satan worshiper was brought to justice. He was sentenced to death for committing 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 13 burglaries. After being sentenced to death, Richard Ramirez died before his execution in 2013. His last words were, "Hail Satan." This matter is very strange, as the next serial killer might be the devil himself.
That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down.
He was known as the Killer Clown, John Wayne Gacy. Gacy killed more than 33 young men and boys. He lured his victims by promising them jobs, drugs, or money in exchange for sex. He would pick them up from the street or deceive them by showing a police badge. Before killing and burying the bodies, Gacy tortured his victims. In his private life, Gacy was a member of the Jolly Joker Clown Club, which was one reason for his nickname, the Clown. Another reason was that he would tell his victims, "This is the last trick. after performing many tricks on them as a means of torture. John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. His last words, which confirmed his lack of empathy for people, were, "Kiss my ass." In the end, John Wayne Gacy was nothing more than a clown. We can imagine that his character's name was Bozo. Well, Bozo's act has been stopped, and we thank the Lord for that. The next serial killer awaiting execution was a fighter who resisted the same death penalty that claimed the lives of many on this list, but he did not succeed despite trying hard.
It caught me off guard. I didn't expect it. I didn't think mine would be the first one signed. After it was signed, though, well, it was just something he had to accept.
John Spenkelink was a lost man accused of killing a travel companion. Spenkelink never wavered in his belief that what he did was self-defense. He was the first man sentenced to death in Florida after the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty in 1976. Spenkelink was executed in the electric chair on May 25, 1979. His last words, commenting on the death penalty system as a whole, were, "Capital punishment means those without the capital get the punishment." For everyone on this list, John Spenkelink resisted the reinstatement of the death penalty in the United States, but he did not succeed and ended up being the first person in Florida to be sentenced to death. The last serial killer with us is not another person from Florida. After these inmates sentenced to death in Florida, there is a question. Can Florida itself be arrested and sentenced for multiple murders?
I mean, you're a board that dispenses privilege, and I've always thought that privileges were sought, desired, earned, and deserved. And I seek nothing from you. I don't desire anything from you. I haven't earned anything, I don't deserve anything either.
Gary Gilmore was the first man executed after the Supreme Court allowed the resumption of the death penalty in the United States in 1976. Gilmore was convicted of killing a hotel manager in Utah, so he was sentenced to death. There is a strange fact here. Dan Whedon, the executive director of advertising at Nike, credited Gilmore's last words as the inspiration for the company's slogan. Gary Gilmore was executed by firing squad on January 17, 1977. His last words were, "Let's do it." The interesting thing about all these serial killers is that the punishment varies depending on the circumstances. We should know that the punishment does not always fit the crime, but there is no agreement among everyone on what the actual punishment can cause.
Number 1. Charles Manson.
Call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone. I don't need to kill anyone. I think it. I have it here. You know, if I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't feel a thing. Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Shocking facts about the extremist cult leader and killer Charles Manson. Charles Manson became infamous as an American cult leader who led his followers to commit gruesome murders in the 1960s and inspired the book Helter Skelter. Born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio, his original name was Charles Mills Maddox. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, became an alcoholic and prostitute at the age of 16, and later married William Manson. But the marriage failed, and she abandoned him completely, leading to his placement in a boys' school. He lived on the streets and survived through petty crimes. By 1951, he was imprisoned for the first time, ultimately spending 32 years behind bars. He married twice. His first wife, Rosalie Jean Willis, 17 years old, moved with him to California in 1955. After she became pregnant, he returned to theft and was soon arrested again. His wife left him with their child and her lover. He later fathered another child while on parole, then turned into the Bloody Messiah and launched a brutal killing spree in 1967, making him one of the most infamous criminals in history. Obsessed with the apocalypse, Manson was heavily influenced by drugs like LSD and the Beatles' song Helter Skelter, which he believed foretold a race war. He founded the Manson family cult from drug-addicted teens, claimed to be the Messiah, and in 1969 his followers committed savage murders, including the Tate LaBianca massacre. He was arrested initially for vandalizing a national park, but further investigation linked him to the murders. He was sentenced to death, but the ruling was commuted to life imprisonment after California abolished the death penalty. Even in prison, he continued to attract followers. In 2017, he was hospitalized due to a serious illness, but no details were disclosed due to security and privacy. He died that same year at the age of 83. Number 2, Edmund Kemper.
And that's when I decided I'm going to murder my mother. I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her. And she went out to a party, she got soused, she came home, went to sleep. I was woken up by that, came out. I walked up to her bed. She's laying there reading a paperback. And she said, "Oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now." Shit. I looked at her, I said, "No." I said, "Good night." And I knew I was going to kill her. You know, it hurts.
The giant killer who hunted his victims himself. Born on December 18, 1948 in California, Edmund Kemper grew up in a troubled household. His mother was abusive and humiliating. The toxic relationship between them intensified after his parents' divorce. Resentful of women, he committed his first murder at 15, shooting his grandmother and grandfather just to know what killing felt like. He was institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, but cleverly convinced doctors he had recovered. After his release, he began killing female college students in the 1970s. His large build, 2.06 meters tall, made his victims powerless. He would pick up victims from bus stops, kill them in his car, dismember them, and keep body parts as trophies. He even kept their severed heads in his fridge and talked to them grotesquely. His crimes peaked when he killed his own mother with a hammer, then invited her friend over and murdered her too. After that, he called the police himself and confessed. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, where he remains today. Psychologists diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder and deep hatred for women. He once said, "I wanted to become the worst thing imaginable, and I did." Despite multiple requests for parole, he was always denied for being a constant threat to society. Today, he is 75 years old, still in a California prison, playing video games and exchanging letters with fans. Number 3, David Berkowitz.
Doing something to appease the devil, I'm sorry for it, but I was, at this time, was serving him. You know, I was serving him. I feel that he had taken over my mind and body, and I just surrendered to those very dark forces. I regret that with all my heart, but, you know, that was like 40 years ago, and I understand that it was a demonic thing, and, you know, I just opened myself up to some very dark forces to come in, and I can't, you know, change that. I look at that in disbelief. I can't believe that happened. I look back, none of it makes any sense. I was under strong delusions. That's what happens when you come under those powers. You're under strong delusions. You just don't, you know, you look back and say, what the heck happened?
Son of Sam, the killer who terrorized New York. Have you ever heard of a man who claimed a devil dog ordered him to kill? This isn't a myth. It's the real story of one of the deadliest serial killers in history. David Berkowitz was born on June 1st, 1953, in New York. He was an unwanted child and was adopted by the Berkowitz family. Despite that, he suffered from depression and loneliness. As a teen, he became obsessed with arson, setting fires for fun. After failing in the military and work life, he turned to crime, which gave him satisfaction. Between 1976 and 1977, he launched a series of random shootings that shook New York. firing at couples in cars or pedestrians with a .44 caliber revolver. He killed 6 people and seriously injured 7 others in 1 year. He left mocking letters for the police signed Son of Sam, claiming his neighbor, Sam, the devil, controlled him through a black dog. Eventually, police noticed a yellow Mercedes at several crime scenes. On August 10, 1977, Berkowitz was arrested and confessed. "Well, you got me. I'm Son of Sam." He initially blamed a demonic dog named Sam, but later admitted it was a lie to attract attention. He simply hated the world and enjoyed killing. He received 6 life sentences totaling 364 years. In prison, he claimed to be born again as a Christian and said, "I was sick, and now God changed my life." Many doubt his sincerity. Despite his so-called repentance, parole was always denied. Today, at 71, Berkowitz is in Shawangunk Prison in California, writing religious letters. Number 4, Richard Kuklinski.
Heaven, hell, and anything in between to get to you. You wouldn't be safe anywhere if I was manager. And that's not bull, Dip, that's truth. I've went up against people. You could pull a gun on me, and if I'm mad at you, I'm coming forward. You'd have to shoot me to stop me. And if you don't kill me, you're stupid. So next time you see me, I will kill you.
The killer who froze his victims in a freezer. Richard Kuklinski, also known as the Iceman, was born on April 11, 1935, in Jersey City, New Jersey. He was nicknamed the Iceman because he froze his victims to destroy forensic evidence, then left the bodies in public areas to mislead police. He later confessed to killing 200 people, though experts believe the number is likely higher. By day, he was a family man who played with his kids and bought gifts for his wife. By night, he was a paid assassin for the mafia, expert in poisoning, stabbing, strangling, and shooting. In an interview, he said, "I never felt guilty. It was just business." His brutal methods even terrified the mafia. He used cyanide, sprinkling it on meals or injecting it into victims' eyes. His favorite weapon was a homemade silenced pistol. He often impersonated fake identities to lure victims and enjoyed frightening them before death. After 30 years of crime, he was arrested due to a secret video recorded by a colleague. In court, he smiled mockingly at journalists and was sentenced to life in prison. He died in 2006 at the age of 72, after living a life of relentless terror. Was he truly mentally ill? Doctors diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder, though he denied it and showed no remorse until the very end.